People, I just did a video about Conor Benn last night and him standing next to Ishmael Davis, the shape he appears to be in. And he's always in good shape, Conor Benn, to be fair. But he looked in particularly good shape. Chris Eubank Jr. likewise always looks. I've never seen him out of shape ever. Always a consummate professional, never out of shape. So in terms of both guys being, physically fit and ready and in shape for this fight, there's no question in my mind that both guys are ready for this fight, right? And just if you could have a look there on screen, if you could just consider hitting the like, hitting the subscribe, hitting the notification bell. We are trying to get the subs up. Let's keep going with that. But there is no doubt in my mind that Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. are going to be in very, very good shape going into this fight. However, there is something that we maybe haven't spoke about as much as we maybe should have. So first time around with this fight, and I mean the first time this fight actually happened, not the first time when it was proposed in 2022 where we got the fight week and it was cancelled. I mean last time out in April. One of the big talking points in the run up to that fight was basically the rehydration and the weight of Chris Eubank Jr. Now, we haven't heard as much about that as we did in the run up to the first fight, because the first fight, there was so much to talk about. It was the egg slap, it was the weigh-in, it was the weight, it was all this stuff. But basically, we don't still know what the situation is with that rehydration clause, because although it's been mentioned, it hasn't been mentioned near as much as it was first time around. Although it's been mentioned, we haven't heard anyone really say yay or nay if it's in there. I know Conor Benn's been alluding to the fact that, it should be there because it's not a title fight. No, that's more reason not to have it there, because there's nothing on the line. Why should it be there? So Chris Eubank Jr., it has to be said, right? He didn't need to sign that rehydration clause first time around, right? He didn't need to. He did. He chose to. Ultimately, he was off weight by a half a pound, a quarter of a pound, very little, very, very little. And then he did adhere to the rehydration clause, which I think was 10 pounds thereabouts, which is actually less than what the IBF enforced. The IBF have a rehydration clause as well, 12 pounds in the morning of the fight. So it's actually less than what the IBF actually imposed, which is crazy when you think about it. But Chris Eubank Jr. agreed to it. He did follow through with that. We don't know what the situation is this time around. Apparently it is the same deal. So therefore it will be at 160 pounds. Chris Eubank Jr. would have to adhere to that rehydration clause again. But he's been very adamant, certainly in interviews, prior to this fight being announced, that no, that's not going to happen. Surely, surely you would say that the ball is in Eubank Jr.'s court if that is the case. Because if you think about it like this, it's fight week of, with the exception of Fury Joshua, the biggest fight in British boxing. It is. It genuinely is. It was big first time around. Has it gone a little bit under the radar this time around? I think it has. I think it's because, and I've said this before, although yes, it is, with the exception of Fury Joshua, it is the biggest fight you can make in British boxing, certainly domestically. But the first fight felt to me like a one and done thing. It felt like we got our story told. We had a great fight. We had a great build up. We had drama on fight night even before, things started with, Chris Eubank Jr. appearing. Would he appear? Wouldn't he appear? When you needed those moments, you had Adam Smith, and he's here. Chris, you had all that, which kind of added to the whole atmosphere. It felt like you weren't just watching a boxing match. You were watching something straight out of WWE. That the match at the end is just, the cherry on the cake, but the build-up is everything. That really, for me, is something that you can't recapture. And especially considering the fact that it is a bit of a strange fight if you think about it, because it's not like Fury Joshua, where if they fought, you would expect a rematch, especially if it was a competitive fight. If it was as entertaining as Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Benn 1 was, you'd be clamoring for the rematch, and it wouldn't go under the radar. It would be, we're seeing this again. A bit like Fury Usyk too. Although there wasn't as much, and there definitely wasn't as much hype for the rematch as there was for the first fight, still a great deal more hype than there was for this. And yeah, obviously world titles, 2 big names, you get that. But I think with this fight, it's because you're dealing with a welterweight versus a middleweight/super middleweight. There's no world title implications, and it's just, it was something that we wanted to see, we needed to see. We've seen it. I don't think we need to see it again. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting going into this fight. But I am looking forward to it nonetheless. I am looking forward to doing the watch along. Going off on a random one there about this fight. But I think the rehydration clause, which is the purpose of this video, I think that could be the game changer for Conor Benn in this fight. Because Conor Benn, first time around, he said it himself. It's very rare I agree with Conor Benn, but he did let the occasion get to him. He was very reckless. He was very reckless, very open. He was very wild. He was wasting energy. He was swinging a lot. I think, though, he did land shots on Eubank. Eubank Jr. is now 36 years old. If he has to adhere to this rehydration clause, which he's clearly outgrown 160 pounds, probably outgrew it a couple of years ago, really. Probably outgrew it really after the Liam Smith fight, the second fight. Probably then was the time to move up. To chuck a rehydration clause limit on that, given the fact that the first fight was punishing, Eubank is the older man, so you would imagine it's going to take him longer to get over that. That could really be the difference between him winning and losing this fight. I think that if you're talking about if you're talking about no rehydration clause, Chris Eubank Jr. in theory should win this fight. Especially now that he's got Bomac back in the team. Jonathan Banks is a good trainer, nothing against Jonathan Banks, brilliant trainer. But Bomac is, especially when you consider that when Eubank worked with him, he really respected him. And he just boxed. I mean, honestly, that version that turned up against Liam Smith of Chris Eubank Jr., if we get that against Conor Benn, seriously, there's a good chance he stops Conor Benn. Very good chance, because that Eubank was on it. He was on it that night. He definitely didn't look as on it against Sarah Metten in Saudi Arabia, although we did get the stoppage that night. And again, you know, you can look at the first Conor Benn fight and say, well, he clearly won it, and he clearly did win it, but you horribly dehydrated, all that. It's not going to make him better, put it like that. So those are my thoughts on this. Chris Eubank Jr., is that the one thing that stops him from winning this fight? I believe it probably is. And I really do think that, given the fact that he won the first fight, I've said this, and as well as this, I've said this before about rehydration clause, and I think it's another example of how this fight is as big a fight as it is. It's one of those fights where you kind of, you don't really look at Conor Benn. You don't think any less of him for losing, right, to Chris Eubank Jr. because he lost to a big middleweight and he's a welterweight. But you only wouldn't think any less of Chris Eubank Jr. Like, for the people who would be going around acting like Conor Benn has done something miraculous, beating Chris Eubank Jr., I'd be like, well, did Tank Davis do something? And the very same people who would criticise Tank Davis and say, he drained Ryan Garcia, will be what heaping praise on Conor Benn. Nah, it goes both ways. If there's a rehydration clause and it is in place, I mean, fair enough, you won, but like, you had a horribly depleted guy in front of you. As I've said before, it's like playing a game. It's like playing a game of Call of Duty, where, your character has infinite health, the other character doesn't, and who has the most deaths by the end of the game if you're playing a 1v1? Oh, shock horror, the guy who's using the cheat codes, he's kind of going to win. Does that mean he's the better player? Not really. You know what I mean? So that's what I got to say on this. Let me know yours in the comment section below. As always, people, if you could, smash the like button, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. Hope you enjoyed it, people, and until next time, peace.